My guest today is the host of the Nobody Likes Casey McLain podcast, also the host of the Poor Sports podcast. Excited to welcome Casey McLain.
You really give away the name when you say the podcast name with my name in it.
With your name too, yeah.
It really
it's kind of a
the piss out of the.
Whose fault is that?
I know, what an asshole. the name became prophetic. The more people had to say it out loud.
Yeah, you just stole it from Raymond too, right? Or isn't that
No,
nobody?
you know who it's most like is the Everyone Hates Chris. Everyone hates Chris. Yeah, I had a moment in the pandemic where I was like, I don't care what anyone thinks. I feel like nobody's in my corner.
Yeah.
And then I changed my podcast name to that, and I was like, oh, this is maybe not good. And I printed 150 T-shirts with it on there. Well, I printed 75, and then I ended up with 150. And so now I have 148 T-shirts that say nobody likes Casey McLain at my house, so I can't change the podcast.
So if anybody wants one of those, throw in a comment.
Please pay what you want.
Yeah.
I will fucking send them to anybody. And otherwise, I did figure out the company that the NFL uses to send like the merchandise of the losing team.
Yeah.
And there might be a bunch of African children running around with nobody likes Casey McLain shirts.
Goddamn. Well, hey, if you are watching us on YouTube right now, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, notifications bell so you don't miss our upcoming content. And then if you want one of those shirts or have a question for Casey or myself, throw it in the comment section. All that helps us out. And we are on Patreon now. Patreon.com/FNFpod. Support us if you can. We're in Spokane right now. Shout out to Ish Qureshi. Great dude, awesome fucking person. And he's a regular at Tony V's comic. Check him out if you are online. But he hooked us up with a spot to stay at tonight and over the weekend. We're working with Harlan Williams. And it's been fun already. I mean, it's Friday. We got 2 more nights of it, but I was thank you, Ish, but I was thoroughly impressed with Harlan. What'd you think?
Yeah, I loved him. By the way, I met Ish like 3 days before this. He put his reputation on the line for me, not knowing who I was, basically. And so thank you, Ish. Yeah, Harlan was great, man. I had high expectations, too, because I've worked with a bunch of comics that know him.
Yeah.
And they all told me he's, like, great. Because you don't know, like, I guess he's not, I think, best known for stand-up, but he was a stand-up before he was any of those other things, and he's a fucking amazing stand-up.
Yeah, I started doing the thing where he was on stage, and, like, there's, feeling it, like, what's this guy like, what this guy, and then it immediately turned into I gotta go to Wikipedia. Okay, he did stand up for 7 years.
Right.
Then he went to LA, and like, because I always knew him from Rocket Man.
Right.
That was like I love that movie. It was fucking hilarious. And then he was in Half Baked. I mean, he's been quietly in a lot of shit.
Yeah, I asked him last night, and he denied it. But I asked him if he knows, he could tell people's age by what they recognize him from. Because my wife is like, oh, that guy from Dumb and Dumber. And for me, he's Half Baked. My cousin, he's the Rocket Man guy. Like, he's been in a lot of shit. He told me, well, I can speak freely and we can edit it. He told me they just finished filming the sequel to Half Baked.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I didn't even know there was a sequel.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Yeah.
Have you seen the original?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's like you're a couple years younger than me. It's weird. Half Baked is in that like pivotal time where people that are a couple of years younger than me, most of them don't even know what that is. Like they like How High.
Yeah.
Friday. Did you see Friday?
Yeah.
Okay. But you're like a drug addict. So.
Yeah. I mean, those were all. They were.
Cheech and Chong. Did you watch Cheech and Chong?
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't like my shit.
Mm-hmm.
I know Cheech and Chong, like a lot of people love those movies, but Half Baked was like, that was one of the funniest and it flopped in theaters.
Yeah.
Like it was not.
I've listened to a lot of Neil Brennan interviews because I think he's like a tremendous writer and I really admire his career. And he talked a lot about how what they pitched was like Train Spotting for weed, and it came out like way more Disneyfied than they wanted it to be. And but I wish that you could go back and do like a new cut of it with Dave Chappelle and Neil Brennan, as dark as they wanted it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard. I mean, he did that like speech at the Mark Twain Awards thing, and like, I've heard both of them basically say like it just came out as like a commercial for weed.
Yeah.
And it flopped at the box office, but was a cult classic. Like I think they wrote that movie in like 30 days.
Yeah,
or 3 days actually. They had 30 days to write it.
So the there's a podcast he does with this dude JP Havlin, who's one of the original Daily Show writers, and he said that basically Dave Chappelle went in with the pitch, and he was like, yeah, I'm writing this weed movie with Neil Brennan, and then he like desperately gets on the phone, calls Neil, he's like, they're gonna call you. We're writing a weed movie. Tell them we're writing a weed movie.
Yeah.
And then they called and they were like, oh, yeah, we're writing a weed movie. And then it got produced in like 7 months, which was like unheard of for a major motion picture. And then flopped. So I don't think they let anyone
It flopped
else
in theaters, but that movie still holds up. Like
I think DVD sales it crushed.
Yeah, yeah. And that was just one of those movies that like if you went to a music store, fucking like whatever, they would always have that. It was a great, like, have you seen Half Baked? It was super funny, man.
And great. I mean, like, you know, I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of like Jim Brewer, but he was in it. He's like a very accomplished and good comic.
Yeah.
Harlan, obviously.
I had no idea how fucking good at stand-up Harlan was. Like,
he's fucking great.
The level of just like camouflaging of his bits and just, I thought this was going to be like a guy that was an actor that does stand-up.
Sure.
And
like a Piven type?
Yeah, and I haven't seen Piven, but I've seen like a couple people that are actors that do stand-up, and it's like just so different.
You're doing the right thing by not naming someone. I could fucking be working with Piven, and this clip comes up, and they're like, get off the tour, dude. Get off the tour. I watched him, Piven closed, he was at the Creek in the Cave when I went there for the weekend.
That's crazy that he was there.
Yeah, and he closed.
It does not seem like a place that he would be.
Right. So he hires a full band to do music with him in each town. He hires a new band. And you would think if you're a comic and you're hiring a band, you'd be the singer. He's just the drummer. He hires a full band so he can drum for 15 minutes at the end of it.
And he's not even like Phil Collins. Like he's not singing while he's drumming.
Exactly.
That's super weird.
It's weird.
It's just weird that he would be at the Creek in the Cave. Like, he was on Entourage. Like,
sure.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
That's so weird.
I think he probably went to like Skyline Comedy Club too. I think he's going to like every club. He's touring. He's like really, say what you will about him. That dude is fucking on the road touring.
Yeah.
And also
I've heard
a
lot of like mixed.
Okay. Cause I've heard good and bad things too, but I've heard like he asks like comics for advice.
Really?
Which I respect. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a weird look when somebody famous is like, the worst example, I think, who was,
Stormy Daniels?
John Gard worked with him a bunch. He was on SNL, like the fat guy that, he was in The Wedding Singer, and he's like, he's losing his mind.
Who was
like
the
what is that guy's name? It'll come to me. But he
not like Horatio Sands or somebody like that.
No. He's it starts with an L. Lovitz, John Lovitz.
Oh, but he was a stand-up before.
He started like
really?
Norm had. I heard all these interviews with Norm Macdonald just ripping on Lovitz so hard. Like they would go play tennis together, and like Lovitz had the best tennis coach in the world, basically paid for the best guy, and then Norm would play him in tennis. Norm showed up in a leather jacket or a jean jacket or something, and Lovitz is used to playing against his instructor, who let him win essentially, right? And then he played Norm, and Norm just kept doing little chip shots. Mm-hmm. So Lovitz had to run to the net, and he kept complaining about like, "Oh, you're not playing fair. Like you're cheating, basically." And Norm just like kept doing it, and he beat him. And he's like, "I don't understand. Like I beat my tennis coach all the time. Like I don't know why. Like this and it was just because he was fat. Like he couldn't make the distance."
My wife and I played at this. There's a ping pong bar. A bar completely dedicated to ping pong in Portland. Mm-hmm. And we were playing, and she was like, "Ooh, I'm beating you."
It's table tennis, by the way.
No, I refuse. I will not adjust my language for anybody. I don't care if it's insensitive. Anyway, we're...
Is that insensitive? Is that the reason?
I don't know.
I didn't know. That's the first I've ever heard. Yeah, it sounds
right?
like, just a sexual thing.
Oh, I was thinking it sounded like something you'd call a person of... Hispanic descent, of course.
Really?
No, it sounds like an old stereotype joke. Anyway, my wife and I are playing, and she's like, "You're losing. You're not even that good." And I was like, "Oh, do you want me to like play
Actually play
full speed?" And she's like, "You haven't been, yeah, please." And I just like it was like 21-4 or something like that. She's like, "Okay, I get your point. Can we play for fun again?" And I was like, "Yeah, like,
yeah.
I just am trying to have fun with you. I'm not like."
Dude, the asserting your dominance move is like, since we're in Spokane, it just made me think. I heard this story about John Stockton the other day, and it's one of the funniest things I've ever heard. He was at this like birthday party or a charity thing or whatever, and there was a kid in a wheelchair, and they had like a Papa Shot set up, and the kid was beating Stockton in the Papa Shot, and at some point, Stockton started swatting the ball out of the kid in the wheelchair's hands
That's so
to beat him.
Oh,
That's
my
a level
God.
of competition that's like insane. Right? Like, you know, he got in the car and his wife was like, "Are you fucking kidding me, John? Are you like I'm trying to
I
remember
love that.
who. Oh, I think Fitz told me that story.
funny.
Like, it's incredible.
You were like a high school athlete of some type, right?
Hockey.
Okay,
I
so
like-
but do you remember when you'd go like I was a baseball player and we'd play softball in PE with like those super soft like so nobody would get hurt balls, dude? I was fucking. I wasn't even a good high school hitter, but you just like the fact that I played baseball my whole life. I'm like a fucking. I'm Willie Mays. Of
Oh
that,
yeah,
of
yeah.
that,
It was
you know?
so dope.
Yeah. Yeah, that or like even like I played basketball up through middle school, and you just don't realize how much like
The baseline entry of like
Yeah.
being
like I had a pretty good shot. We would like play a lot of pickup when I was playing. That's how I got in. That's how I used to be able to get into shape. I'd play like the first. You'd have to have 10 practices for baseball, and we would just play like 2 hours of baseball, and then after baseball practice, we would play 2 hours of pickup basketball, and I would like be in great shape by the end of those 10 days.
Sure.
That was all I did to get in shape.
basketball shape is like I keep getting it back and then losing it.
Yeah.
But it's because I went running today and it was like it's nowhere you just can't the starting and stopping and like just like
Going full speed.
Yeah, and then getting like in defensive position. It's the hardest thing for sure.
They're the best athletes in the world. I mean, like it's undeniable to be that big and that coordinated.
I feel like I've heard jockeys are like in incredible shape, like because they're so little and like pound for pound they're incredibly strong.
Sure,
but like I don't know I know basketball their endurance is incredible, but
also their endurance for their size. Like when you watch a heavyweight boxing match, that match is those could be 4 rounds because by the 5th round those dudes are all gassed because it takes so much to move muscles that big.
Yeah.
When you watch like Floyd Mayweather go 12, he looks it's not even a cardiovascular thing. Those dudes are just too big.
Yeah.
And the NBA players, like they're running the court, guys. LeBron's playing, he's in his late 30s playing 40 plus minutes. That's crazy.
It's so nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, he's got to be taking something at this point.
I heard, and this is probably even more now because of inflation, but I heard that he spends $1 million a year to keep his body in shape.
I have heard this on my podcast like 10 times now. Like
Really? Everyone has that
like
fact?
Everybody has it. And they always say it as if nobody else has known it. It's the most represented fact on this podcast.
He also is very into red wine. And,
D Wade and that group of guys, like, I'm pretty sure they were into HGH, red wine, and I guess according to Dwayne Wade's wife's book, getting their ass eaten. I don't know if you ever heard that. Yeah,
Real Union.
Yeah,
yeah.
She outed him in her own book about like how much he likes his ass eaten.
I feel like that's like it's a real mark of evolution that dudes can just admit that now. Because in the 90s, can you imagine?
You're gonna out yourself for that?
No, I'm not into that shit. I'm a fucking prude, dude.
Really?
I had a joke about how I think that all that stuff's gross and nobody should do it.
Was that the word you used, or did you use a different word than gross?
I mean, it was. I think I said gross.
Yeah.
I think I. Yeah, I think I would say. I would. My joke was I'd go. You know, like my wife and I are falling behind sexually. People are eating ass now, and I don't think you should do it. I think it's. Maybe I said disgusting. I might have said disgusting.
Yeah. It's definitely unsanitary.
It's wild to me. And it's also like I went to Atlanta in 2007 and I had like a bunch of buddies who were like, because I feel like hip hop moved the ass eating thing forward. That's what my joke is about also. And the fact that it became like acceptable in hip hop made everybody willing to talk about it, almost like too much. Like keep some privacy, please.
Yeah.
But I remember talking to those dudes, and they're like, yeah, if you get out of the shower and take 3 steps, that's too much for me. And I'm like, yeah, I agree. I don't like. We all are aware poop comes out of there, right? Like,
Yeah.
It's.
I mean, I remember. I mean, we've discussed this on this podcast a lot too. But D12 from Detroit,
Sure.
like Bizarre, he had like this whole sketch, and one of his like Nasty Mind was the name of the song, and it's just all about like getting his ass eaten and shit. And like that was early 2000s, you know, like he was way ahead of the curve on that. But then there was also a bunch of stuff about being in a gang and being ass raped. So I don't know how much truth there was to it, but it was very intense.
He does
like,
not discriminate, it doesn't sound like.
Yeah, I don't know if like that's where progress is going to go. Then it's just like it goes from ass eating to just full on rape or something. But
there's a lyric from a Tech Nine featuring Chris Calico sketch where he talks about sitting in a bath. And he goes, "Bath don't make no sense. Sitting in your ass water." And I've thought about all that every time my wife takes a bath. She takes like 4 baths a week, and I'm like, you're just
sitting
stewing in your own ass water.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
God, I fucking love Tech Nine.
I've been to like 4 Tech Nine concerts.
Really?
More
Is he
concerts.
good live?
He's amazing live.
Really?
Yeah, and I don't even like. I think like he had an album called Ever Ready where the Malibu or Caribou Lou song was on the Alpha Dog soundtrack.
Yeah.
That was the last album that I thought was good, and everything after that's like definitely more poppy.
Yeah.
But that dude puts on the best live show of any hip hop artist I've ever seen.
Really?
Yeah, it's crazy. He's great.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the NPR Tiny Desk with him?
No, that sounds
really
awesome.
good. Check it out. It's
also crazy they would have him.
They've had a lot. I mean, they had Mac Miller. They had the Mac Miller one is.
But I guess maybe it's because maybe he really did go pop enough that nobody's listened to like those first 3 or 4 albums, because he's into some wild shit.
Mm-hmm. He's from St. Louis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, Kansas City.
That's right.
Casey Mo.
Okay, so we've talked about hip hop and a bunch of random shit. Let's talk about comedy for a second.
Hard-hitting interview time.
Yeah. So when did you start?
2015.
Okay. So that's 8 years?
Yeah, it'll be 8 years someday in June. I can't remember the exact date.
Where, like in Tacoma, that's where you started?
Comedy Club, yeah.
And is that where you cut your teeth, or like where did you work primarily to start?
So, first open mic, Tacoma Comedy Club, and then I was doing, I would do like every show. I mean, I was, several nights a week in Seattle, Olympia. My favorite place, I used to do this on Tuesdays. There was this open mic in Tacoma that was just a horrific open mic that was produced by Jess Everett, our friend Jess Everett, and his girlfriend Cameron Minch, she was a comic at the time. I keep telling her she's going to do comedy again. She keeps denying it, but it was just horrible. It was like all comics, and I'm like so many of my friends in comedy I met there. Almost everybody that did it still does comedy, which is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I would do that, and then I would go down to Olympia and do this barbecue place called Pig Bar that you could get on both very easily.
Yeah.
And my favorite thing in the world is doing at least 2 sets in a night. And so I would do that like almost every week, basically.
Yeah. So like, were you getting up every night pretty much, or like?
I would always set a goal, and I think my first year my goal was 100 sets, and then it was like 150 sets every year after that. Because I got married like 4 months after I started comedy,
Mm-hmm.
and I've always had up until recently, I've always had a full-time job, and so my goal was 150 sets. Tacoma's tough because you got to drive an hour plus a lot of times if you're going to try to do comedy every night. You live in Everett.
Yeah.
There's not a lot in Everett proper.
I mean, some have called it a hotbed. It's.
Well, I told you last night, like, it's crazy to me. I started comedy in 2015 when Tacoma Comedy Club owned Tacoma Comedy Club. And now the people that own that club own like 7 clubs across the country. They're opening a second club. And
we're working
Tacoma.
at this one here.
Yeah, we're working at one this week.
Shout out Spokane Comedy
This
Club.
club
Kim.
wasn't here when I started comedy.
Yeah.
And because I started where I did, I have like an opportunity. It's just incredibly fortunate,
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stuff like that in stand-up, though, where it's like
Sure.
just the being around. Like, you don't really get to, you don't know how your opportunities are gonna come, and like,
Yeah.
I mean, like, what does success look like to you?
Yeah, I've heard this question
Yeah.
from you before. Well, we talked about this. What's funny is we've done like half this. We're just reciting lines from last night now. I want to be able to not have a day job and live comfortably. Like I have a child and another child on the way. Like
I didn't know that.
yeah, she's doing. This is my last road weekend before we have our second kid.
Congrats, man.
July 13th.
Girl?
Yeah, another girl.
Nice.
And then done. Cutting it all. The whole factory's
Yeah,
coming out.
I'm thinking about doing that too.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah,
Having spent more time with you than I ever had before. Yeah, you really
Yeah.
you should be the face of vasectomy.
Yeah. No, I literally have a bit about
See,
it
this
right
is why
now.
people think I'm an asshole, because some people don't realize that I am serious, but it is funny. you
Yeah.
know? Anyway, my nut is a little bigger than. That sounds fun in that, because I haven't had the vasectomy yet. My nut's a little bigger than. I got to make more money than other comics. I'm envious of people like you that started before.
But have nothing at all.
Have nobody that loves them. I did have a moment in the pandemic when Mark Normand was like just doing the road the same amount, and I was like, I'm so jealous that he has like a family he doesn't care about. Like if I could just abandon these people, I could make a lot of headway.
Mhm.
You know.
I mean, you can still.
That's true. I mean, they might track me down though. That's the problem. The problem with being a comic is if you ever want to hide, I have to post tour dates. Like they're gonna find me.
Yeah.
You know?
It's not a. I mean, there were a lot of stories that I've heard. Like I think in Marin's book, he was talking about like comics that were like hiding from the IRS and like taking bookings, but then like debt collectors would call the club when they're like booked somewhere and shit.
Yeah.
So I mean, we talked a lot about like this concept of the middle class of comedy, and I haven't ever heard anybody put it that way. For me personally, like I've gotten to the place where I'm like, I think I'm kind of spiraling a little bit, and I'm okay with it. Like I think it's sort of a necessary step in this process, like in order to get to that place where you're actually gonna make a living doing this. Like I think you have to dive in all the way. Like it's
the thing to me is you hear a lot of people say these like posturing things where they're like, I want to be Kevin Hart. Well, Kevin Hart didn't get to decide to be Kevin Hart. Like a lot of things that were out of his control had to happen for him to become Kevin Hart, right?
Mhm.
There's things that are in his control, which is we were talking about that yesterday too, which is like
sleeping with random women.
that's
and
great.
Cheating on
That's
his
pretty
wife.
good. Yeah, that's pretty good for him. But like you got to do like that dude's up at 4 a.m. He's got like an incredible work ethic and drive. He's likable. He's, all these things that you can do. But I think that if you set this thing as like, I'm going to be Kevin Hart.
He didn't say that he was black. He left.
Yeah. Is he? I've never actually seen him perform. I don't know. I think if you set the goal at something that's realistic, there are like, when I say the middle class of comedy, there's guys that you're like, there's guys that we know that are making 6 figures doing comedy.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And they're not like incredible stars. And I think that's the thing is like, you don't have to just eat shit and be a waiter the whole time you're a comedian to like for the sake of the art. There's a version of comedy where, I mean, like I make pretty decent money doing comedy. If I didn't do comedy, it would make a significant impact on my family's finances.
Really?
Yeah. I'll tell you off the air because it's not going to be impressive to any of these people, but I think you'll like, that's what I'm saying is like, there's a middle class of comedy that
give the number. It's like,
okay,
the people want to hear
$700,000. Is that?
That's not great for on great. Here. I mean, Zach Summerfield, I think he made like $50 last night, and that's, comparatively pretty good, but
no, I mean, it's
7 figures.
It's not 7 figures. But
it affects your bottom line.
Like, it was like $25,000 a couple of years ago. I actually don't know what it was officially last year, but it was $25,000 a couple of years ago.
Okay.
And that's like, I'm also not like I'll never be a guy that's on the road 40 weekends a year.
Mhm.
A guy we've talked about, Dave Landau, he has, to me, the dream schedule, which is he only goes out Friday and Saturday, most places.
Mhm.
He has his buddy go headline the club. What a great arrangement for Matt McLowry to go.
Yeah, Thursday
He headlines
nights.
Thursday, maybe headlines Sunday. And then you get there and your buddy's already there, already has maybe a car rented or whatever. Like, so he doesn't have to be
He's
away from
already
his kid.
eaten 9 cheeseburgers without the bun.
Is that
Have
something
I told you
that he
that?
did? No, I don't
So,
know the
like,
story.
dude, I love Matt. The amount of fucking burger, like, because he's keto and he gets, or
He and I
he's
have the same body
carnivore
type.
or whatever.
Oh,
Because it's
he's autistic.
yeah,
which is
so
like,
it's
that's known.
for that. Like,
Yeah.
I guess it helps
His brain works.
being
right?
autistic. I don't know. It was just hilarious that like every show he got 3 subsequent cheeseburgers. And it was like, it was one night, I think he had eaten 6 already, and then Kenny, the manager for the back,
Tacoma,
essentially,
right?
like, he's like, do you want anything else? And he's like, yeah, I'll take 3 more. Just like, there was like 9 burgers in one day. That's intense, dude. 9 burgers and 9 pieces of cheese at least.
I'm doing keto right now.
Yeah.
And
I know you were crushing cheese last night.
I ate like 5 pieces of cheese, just pieces of cheese.
That's a sad aspect of keto, where like
It's bad, dude.
if you don't have the option, you're like, oh, I guess I'm just eating fat.
I'm just
It's
eating condiments, basically. Yeah. I was in Montana with Charles Hall, Alex Kaufman, a buddy of mine, and this dude Luke Cole, and then there were some other comics, but these are the guys we all traveled with, and it's like, I've never felt more like a Seattle comic than going, actually, could I not have hash browns? Could I have some fresh fruit? And could you make sure it's like strawberries, more, we went to Chipotle like 4 times, and I'm like, Charles was like, God, this guy must love Chipotle. And I'm like, no, it's like, I don't know what else is in Montana that they're not going to assume
Fuck up,
I'm.
yeah.
Yeah, they're like, oh, this fucking Seattle loser. I just don't want to have the awkward conversation with some fucking lumberjack cook, Like, no, sorry, I'm not eating carbs right now. I can't do it. I can't bring myself
Dude,
to
I
do it.
can't fuck with keto.
I think I gotta
tried.
start telling people I'm autistic. I think
That works better. I've been doing it for a while, just in general, and it
Telling
just
them I'm
explains.
autistic?
I've been telling a lot. I mean, I've been called autistic enough by my friends that I'm just like, I'm accepting this, and now I just have to eat 9 burgers a day.
Yeah.
But keto is like, I tried doing it for like a year or whatever. I just ended up
You used to be fat?
like, growing up,
Like,
Not-
how fat?
pretty fat. Like, not.
I'm wondering
like,
if this fat is stolen valor. That's what I'm wondering. You have stolen fat valor?
I mean, my brother was an asshole more than I was fat, so he called me
Oh,
Fadam.
gotcha, okay.
And then I took the power back of that
You
joke
took
by
the word back.
naming. But now I'm like, I'm not fat. The name of this doesn't make sense. Most of this podcast doesn't make sense.
Sure. I mean, we're not even friends. That's the
No,
thing.
it's we're acquaintances at best right now.
It is fun to be like, I love meeting comics that are like spending time because I've known you a little bit,
Yeah.
but not like to like really get a weekend with someone is fun.
Yeah.
This is all, by the way, the behind the scenes is I'm sleeping in a hotel and not this cabin tonight. We're done. I'm never
We're
talking
done
to
with
you
it.
after this trip.
Never again. We're done.
Well, you forced me to sleep on a twin bed yesterday, which was not a pleasant experience. So I thought about pushing those 2 beds together,
Yeah.
but I can't. My ego as a very important feature comedian is this guy makes me take the small bed.
I was curious how you felt about that.
Well, I think I expressed it last night. I was unhappy last night.
Yeah.
And then I'm also driving, it's like 30 miles from here to the club, or 30 minutes from here to the club.
Yeah.
And then I'm driving like another 30 minutes past that to golf tomorrow with Charles.
Yeah.
And I feel bad masturbating in someone else's home,
Yeah.
that I'm not paying. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we easily could have had that conversation earlier in the day yesterday.
What are you talking about? I put all my shit in that room before that.
There was no conversation, though.
I know. I fucking tried to assert dominance.
I know, and I took that dominance back.
Yeah, now I'm going to a hotel. Like
That's
like an angry spouse.
Yeah, I mean, that's okay.
Yeah.
you're welcome to stay here. I mean, I'm not forcing you to do anything.
You're like, you could sleep on the couch. Like, that's better.
There's a pullout, man.
I'm 36 years old and fat. I think I should get the big bed, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I got that last night when you got in bed with me, and I
bed
told you to get the fuck out.
And then I laid there for about 10 more minutes, and then you
asking me why do I think that people don't like you? You literally got in a bed and tried to kick me out last night after I invited you to stay somewhere for free.
Yeah.
I was trying to help you out, and then you tried to assert dominance on me, and I
think that I viewed the invite as more like we would have fun together, and not I would have to sleep in a twin bed, you know?
I guess to me it was just like, hey, if you want to save money on a hotel.
I will say, if I knew that was the situation, this isn't your fault.
Yeah.
It's not like it's an Airbnb. It's somebody's cabin. It's a comic friend of yours who's like barely an acquaintance of mine. Ish, you're the man. I love you. I like you more than Adam, by the way, by a lot. But if I had like seen pictures and it was like, this is going to be my room, this is going to be your room, I for sure would have taken the hotel. Yeah. It's nice. I'd still save some money.
Dude. It's fine.
I'm not bougie, man. I'm driving home. I'm at the fucking moment my set's done. I'm driving home to my dear wife and family, and I don't want to crash on the drive because I fall asleep at the wheel.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm sorry you want me to die so my daughter doesn't get to go to college, Adam. I'm sorry. It's not worth it to me.
I mean, you're having me sell your merch for you tomorrow night.
Fuck, that's I actually wasn't sure if you were still going to do it after me laying in bed next to you. But.
No, I have no problem with that. Look, you're your own man. I didn't force you to come here. If the accommodations aren't what you want, I don't give a shit.
I think again, it's like if we were picking out an Airbnb, I don't think we would have picked this Airbnb.
Of course.
I actually love the place.
Yeah.
I would have loved it a lot more if I was in a bigger bed. But the I think
I was so curious if this was gonna come up on the episode.
Yeah, obviously. I fucking came home and you like didn't. We had a little bit of tension, and you like didn't talk to me and turned on music, which is such lady behavior. By the way,
I didn't even think about it. Yeah. I just turned on music because it was awkward because it was quiet. I didn't have any tension with you.
I said something to you and you just didn't respond. And I like when I came in, I said, what did I say? I said, you want to do the podcast indoors or outdoors? And you're just like, we're fucking serial killer eyes.
I didn't hear you.
Autistic serial killer
My ears
eyes.
are bad. So like that's.
Oh God, what an excuse.
No, I was a drummer. Like I literally, there's a lot of.
You and Piven, dude. We know how he's going to close his shows when he becomes a headliner, folks, is fucking...
Assuming I become
you hire a 5-piece band to let you drum for your audience.
Well, let's talk about this, because Zach was on, and you felt like some of the things were said.
Oh, it was 100% about me.
Okay.
I texted him to confirm.
Yeah.
It was about me.
And so...
He said those things to me about me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you took issue with some of it.
No, it's so the
and if people need context to this, because this is getting a little inside, Zach and I did a podcast on the road, and he said that, I mean,
I listened to it because I was driving into town and I've actually never heard of you before. And no, I was like, well, because you're going to do my podcast also, I'd like to know, something more about this podcast, something more about you. So I'm listening to this podcast, and Zach is a guy who I think is like one of the best new comics around. And I feel like he thinks like I'm trying to fuck him or something, and that it's not genuine, because I like have tried to book him. I try to book him on stuff. I recommend him to fucking everybody. Anytime I'm headlining a place, there's a couple people I ask for. It definitely won't be Adam Tiller in the future, but there's some people that I ask for. And he's one of them.
I'm okay with that. If that's the case. It's not going to hurt my... Anytime somebody says that, it's like,
no, it's going to be fine. We'll have separate hotel rooms. We'll get along great.
Look, if you took me along anywhere, I will sleep wherever you want me to sleep. I'm happy to do that.
Anyway, so Zach... But the other thing is, Jess Everett is like one of my best friends in comedy. He did their podcast, and he sends me a text when he gets done. He goes... Dude, you got to be nicer to Zach. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, all I've done is fucking advocated for this guy. I tell him all the time, I think he's very funny. He's like on the verge of quitting comedy, and I'm like, don't, you're great. Like, fucking keep going.
He's also an alcoholic. That's not helping.
Sure, he's in a fucking
he wakes up
spiral.
every morning and he's like, oh my God, it gets all existential. I'm 30 years old. I'm fat.
Yeah,
and
but
he
he
keeps
blames
talking about
me
how
instead
fat
of
he is
himself.
constantly.
That's the problem, is he blames me instead of himself. He needs to internalize his shame and not
Here's
apply
a
it
question
to
for you.
Sure.
Do you think there's a tendency for older comics to assume that people who have been doing comedy less than them want their advice?
I don't think that I give him advice, for the record. He's asked me for advice.
Okay.
I try really hard. Now, there's a couple things. You and I had like discussion, like debates about stuff yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not telling you how to change anything. I think you're doing great. I think.
But do you think that's a common thing, objectively speaking, when you get
question again?
So you get a 10-year comic in a room with a 4-year comic. Do you think it's pretty common for the 10-year comic to start trying to tell the 4-year comic what they're doing and what they need to do differently?
I'm sure it's somewhat common. I don't know that I was like around anyone that did that when I was a 4-year comic.
I would say that in Tacoma, my experience has been there have been a lot more comics doing that.
Do you feel like I've been giving you advice this weekend?
No,
okay.
I haven't. And if I did, I would be honest and tell you that I would.
I try to make a point of not doing it, but one of the things that I'm finding out as I'm hurting the feelings of Dear Zach Summerfield and other comics, he's not the only person. Like, weirdly, I've found out about 2 other comics who I like hurt their feelings in some way.
Yeah.
And I'm not ever trying to do that. I bust balls constantly.
Yeah.
Like,
do you think you take it as well as you give it? Because I feel like there's a lot of comics where they're willing to take it, or they're willing to give it, but then when it comes their way, they do this math in their head of, I'm a feature, I'm a headliner, therefore I shouldn't be taking shit from a host or whatever. And it shouldn't be about that. It should be whether or not the joke is funny, no matter where their this hypothetical hierarchy that exists. Because the reality is like, if there was even a hierarchy, that can change like that with social media.
Like, Zach and I did a roast against each other, which I don't even remember why.
I'm not talking specifically about Zach. I'm saying in general.
No, but
he is fat though. He's extremely fat, and he has a drinking problem.
He has my dream body, but him as an example, since that's what we're talking about. I think roasts are fun, and my belief when it comes to comedy is if you have to shit on me and the crowd laughs, those are all laughs. Like, make the show better.
Mm-hmm.
That's my belief. Where I do have a problem is I don't think that, like, I don't like to say other comics aren't funny or something like that in a place where, like, the public can see it. I would never go like, Adam Tiller's not funny on my public Facebook. Now, I have been texting people all weekend, but that's private,
Sure. Also, that's subjective. Like, I don't really, even if you were doing that publicly.
So the only reason I even question if I take it as well as I give it is another one of those guys, Logan Cantrell.
Yeah.
Who
is funny.
He's great. He's very funny. I've another guy.
I'm just saying that public though. Privately, yeah. I'll text him and tell him he's not.
So fun. The guys that do that podcast, the Rough Sets podcast, I think they're all very funny and they're all incredibly talented
they're also all terrible human beings.
Oh, of course. But I mean,
as someone that has stayed with them more than once. But some of the meanest people I know, but very, very funny.
Logan, I posted a thing that was like promoting Jess Everett's show, and he was like, I said like, by the way, Jess like tried to book me on the show. And if I was making a joke, I go, yeah, it's Jess Everett and friends. I thought maybe taking a guy on the road with me for a year was enough to be counted as a friend, but I guess not. I was busy that day. I couldn't do the show.
Yeah.
But I thought that was funny. Jess thought it was funny. And then Logan was like, he was actually talking about his comedian friends, like the joke. The only joke is I'm not a comedian, which is like one time fine. And then I was like, it just like wasn't actually funny. So that's my wonder is like, is that me not being able to take it? I do think that's.
I think so. I mean, okay, but you shouldn't. Logan's opinion about your comedy is Logan's opinion of your comedy.
So this is we had a discussion about this. This is my thing is I want to fucking sell tickets.
Yeah.
And if there's comedians coming on to tell me I'm not funny,
Well,
Not
you don't
everyone's
even
in on this
consider
joke.
Logan a comedian. though.
No,
Like,
he doesn't consider me a
Okay,
comedian.
do you consider him?
I think he's great.
Okay.
I think he's fantastic.
Well, then he has a different opinion, and like I guess it just
he
comes
has a
down
different
to
opinion that he doesn't think I consider him a comedian.
no, that like you're
He
saying
was the
that
one that's saying I wasn't a
Yeah.
comedian.
yeah,
I wasn't
so, like,
saying that about
he
him.
has a different opinion about you than you do about him,
Right. And so
and like even if
me-
that, it's just an opinion, like
but no, this is my thing is like it's like a Yelp review. But we're fucking all in the same thing.
I don't know, man. It's like
If I post an event of mine and a bunch of people go on and go, "Oh, this guy's not funny," that doesn't sell. That sells less tickets.
they're not doing that though.
He literally
he's
did
doing
it.
it on Jess's thing that you
No,
were too
no.
pussy to do.
No, he's doing it on my thing, promoting Jess's thing for him. But I like shared Jess's post and like wrote a thing about how everyone should go to this thing.
Yeah.
And then, but
So you didn't tell me that at the beginning.
I did say that.
I thought you said you commented on Jess's post.
No, I wrote like a post, like shared it with a comment,
Yeah.
and that so it was my post, but also like
This
dude,
is
there's-
either the most boring podcast I've
gotta be
ever. Yeah,
boring.
this is can't. This is,
but my point is that's the only thing that's stopping me from saying that because I know that there's there's a possibility people will listen and go, oh, this fucking loser got mad at me, and I think that's a little different than like on stage, back of the club, whatever. Like among comics, I think I take it pretty fucking well.
okay. Why public? Just because it's ticket sales?
Yeah,
'Cause
man, it's just,
it just to me like that
I don't
should
want to fuck
extend.
with anyone's money ever. I will never
Why is that so important to you?
money because
Yeah.
I need it to pay my bills.
Okay, but is the bit more important than the money?
I would say that if the bit was incredible, I'd be fine with it. But it's not. It's not like it's an incredible bit. It's a like you're not. I mean, we could almost. I could probably pull it up pretty quickly. Like it was just like repetitive, the same bit. Like there was no like.
I mean, it sounds to me, knowing Logan, it sounds to me that he was
I like
making a
Logan.
stupid comment
We've talked
as a
about it
joke.
since then.
He didn't mean anything about it. He was just saying it
Right.
sarcastically.
No, yeah, I don't think.
But then
I don't think he was
to-
being malicious.
No, but like, it also isn't fucking with your money
So the-
because it's
No, it could.
okay.
though.
So
It could
Logan,
very- if
like,
it was on net,
someone.
Here's my deal, dude. Is that if there's a behavior that bothers you from somebody else, of course it's not on my post in that moment, but I think you should tell him. And so I did. He and I had a conversation about it. I don't know that he's happy, but we were going to partner on a thing,
Yeah.
and it's not going to happen anymore because
Yeah.
I don't want someone to sabotage something I'm working hard on.
I just to me it's
By the way, I
ball
still think he's
busting.
incredible. I'd still book him to do whatever. I
Yeah,
think he's
yeah.
very funny. I'm not.
It just I don't. It comes to me that comes off as like being okay giving it but not taking it. Like,
But
he's
I would
making-
never say that. I would never.
But you can like if
Right.
if you did, like you're drawing a boundary against him that you're saying
Yeah, we
you know.
all have different boundaries.
Yeah.
I'm just setting the boundary. That's what I'm saying.
okay,
So,
that's
like,
fine. So
Am
like,
I as good at taking it? Like, I think that there's
I mean,
certainly
dude,
there's people.
Those
who,
guys have shit on me so fucking hard.
Well,
on their
those guys are
podcast.
also they're sensitive about me making fun of them too. So it's like I don't,
I think they're sensitive about it when they feel like if they throw it your way, you can't
that's the
take it.
only instance I can even think of me not in my
Well,
entire comedy career.
There's a comment section below here on YouTube.
Sure.
So
Do you know?
feel
Is there?
free. I think they have about 10 different accounts on YouTube, and they can fill it in there. I mean, I also.
You mean,
these
you mean
are,
they can comment?
no,
Those guys?
yeah, they for sure
Yeah,
will.
I mean, that was the thing that when Jess said that to me, I'm like, in my estimation, I've been nothing but nice to him.
yeah. I mean,
outside
I've
of
heard
publicity.
from a couple people that they felt bullied by you. You got,
Right.
yeah.
This
You
is
got a
something I-
rep for being a bully.
Right, and that sucks. And it's people are right. That's why I'm asking people like
You
I talked
bullied
to-
me last night,
Well, I mean that
and
was
I stood up for myself.
Is it not the funniest thing to go lay in the bed next to you?
Dude, you had a few drinks,
Yeah.
and it was getting to the point where I was like, am I going to throw hands with this dude that I barely know?
Really? It was that
Yeah, it was very uncomfortable. Like, I don't know you well, and like,
okay.
to be, like, you're talking about boundaries. You got in a bed with me. like it was
Yeah.
beyond, like, about like it's literally a physical boundary.
I guess I felt a little bit like violated and disrespected because you had asked me to take my stuff out because we thought these people might be staying with us. And
but I was going to have that conversation with you whether or not your stuff was in there or not. Like,
well, you didn't though.
Sure, because it wasn't in there anymore. It wasn't necessary. But there's no way that I would be. So I would have somebody like be a guest somewhere that I helped them. Like I got them something, and then they would assume that like I just never would come into a situation like that and assume that.
Right. So
like that's a crazy mindset. So I don't know if it's a Pacific Northwest thing or whatever. Like I'm French Canadian, so maybe I'm a little different and grew up in the Midwest, but I would never be a guest in somebody's place and come somewhere and then just assume, like, not even have the conversation. That's crazy.
Well,
dude.
I thought it was funny to do at the beginning. And then no conversation happened. So, but again,
it was, hey, get your stuff out of here because of that. Well, yeah, and then we needed to have a conversation,
right? But
we did, but it was out of there.
We didn't have a conversation, though.
But like for sure, you realize that like how crazy that is.
I don't think it's
like
that crazy. I think it was like I understand why you would feel that way, and I also like
I went out on a limb to try and do something nice for you, and then it's met by I'm coming in here and going to try and big dog this situation because I've done comedy 4 years more than him.
Definitely wasn't that.
Okay, then what was it?
I thought it was funny I just thought it was funny to take the bigger bed, and I also think like I am a bigger guy.
Yeah.
So
which if we had that conversation prior to it, if you had said like, "Hey man, I have back issues. I have like whatever." I would be more than happy to do that for you.
We didn't know what the sleeping situation was.
But to just like impose your will on the situation, it was disrespectful and rude. Like that's a respect thing. Like it's me and you.
To me, there's a rudeness thing that's funny.
Sure, and that's why I handle it the way that I did. Sure. Like, and if I would have had to throw hands and beat your ass last night,
that is wild to throw hands
for sure. For sure,
yeah.
But like I'm gonna stand up for myself if somebody's trying to big dog me. Like I'm a grown man. I'm 34 years old. You're 36. Just because we do this thing together doesn't mean I'm not gonna beat your ass if you try and tell me how things are gonna be.
That's interesting. I think
we're in the woods in Spokane. That's crazy, dude.
Yeah, that's. I feel like that's. I mean, whatever. You perceived it a specific way. I did not think it was that disrespectful. I mean,
you're literally talking about boundaries with this dude, right? Well, and how he's crossing your boundary, where you're crossing my boundary, and then that I'm crazy for having a reaction. Like, it's the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I. By the way, this is what I'll say is like I think that what I'm saying is, if people think that I'm bullying them, they're not wrong. I'm not saying they're wrong. I think like you saying that is not wrong. What I'm saying is my intent was not to be like, I'm the big fucking, like, we're both fucking openers. You know what I mean? Like sure. That's like, I don't really have like,
So what would have been the appropriate response on my part in your mind? Because you think it's funny to like bully somebody and to assert dominance.
I mean, I think it was just like a little ball busty thing, but I mean, ultimately I slept in the other bed. I think if you would have said like, hey man, I got this, like you should let me have that bedroom. I mean, yeah, I think I would have been fine with it. I understand that's like not a super comfortable thing to do.
Sure. But I would have been happy to stay anywhere. Like I would have if you had approached me and said like, hey, these are the things, but to like
this is my thing is when I got here, I didn't know whose bedroom was gonna be what. But
you chose to come early too, so it was like
I wasn't that early.
Yeah,
but I didn't like do it so I could claim the bedroom. You didn't tell me even that you were gonna. Because the other thing is when I put all my shit there was I was trying to get all my clothes out, so it was just my merch in my bag, so I could take my bag to the club and leave it at the club.
Yeah.
So you weren't like very responsive when I was texting you or messaging you. You were like on the phone or whatever, and you're driving, whatever.
Yeah.
So I didn't think it was going to become this big thing, and I was like, it's just kind of funny to be like an asshole. Like, yeah, I think that, and I get why. Again, I'm not saying this reputation for being a bully. I'm not saying it's wrong.
Yeah.
I also think
to be like upset that these guys feel that way.
No,
I'm
not upset that they feel that way.
Yeah.
I'm
then
upset.
what is it? Because like I don't
No, I
really.
literally
The
was like-
logic doesn't make sense.
I literally
here.
was asking Zach, "Can you give me an example yesterday?" And he doesn't, because I want to know.
Well, this is one right here. Like it's
Right, and
literally this situation.
right, and I'm acknowledging it.
Yeah.
Right?
So
I'm
I
not
guess
mad
like
at you. You were mad at me. I was never mad at you. I will say that it was a weird tension at the beginning, but I'm not like I've never been mad at you.
yeah, I haven't been mad. I
You were
just
talking
like
about throwing hands a
for
moment
sure.
ago.
Yeah, but
That
that's a
sounds pretty
difference
mad.
between no, that's not an anger thing. That's a look. If you're gonna challenge me to where I have to stand up for myself, I'm
It
gonna
sounds
stand
pretty
up
mad
for myself.
when the imminent thing is to throw hands.
No, it's just
But,
if
so-
that's what it's gonna. If you're gonna physically get in my space and try and claim something like that, I mean, you were literally in bed with me. I've never had another comedian
I
get
stand
in
by
bed
it
with
being
me.
pretty funny.
And I get it that you had a couple drinks and like
I
you
would
know
have done
that.
it sober.
Okay,
It's
but
not
like
it's
that's
not a,
I as somebody who was sober completely. Like
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was, hey, this person's had some whiskey, that's why they're doing that.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
have
yeah,
to
I
deal
guess-
with this regularly, like with those fucking assholes where
No,
they
that's-
get fucked up, and
Let
then I'm the one person that's sitting there that's like
Let me make
having
a point
to process
in your
that.
first off, I wasn't drunk. I'll say that.
you
One
just had
thing
5 cheese slices
I was
to balance
drunk
it out.
on cheddar. One thing I will say in your favor that I did not consider is I have a very much like high school locker room like when I'm staying with somebody, it's like a high school locker room sense of humor.
Yeah.
And that is definitely I did not think of this like I don't know you that well thing
Mhm.
as like I thought we just got along fine and it would be fine because you're like a sports guy.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was like bro-y funny stuff.
Sure, but I also like I grew up with brothers. I have
Sure.
2 brothers, and if that shit were to go down at the house, like with those guys, both of them would do the same fucking thing. Like you do not let.
Yeah, I mean I grew
As-
up with baseball players.
Yeah,
Like
I mean, did you
didn't-
have sisters or brothers though?
I have a sister, but I'm like I would have done that.
Because that was a woman move, in my
I
opinion.
went to baseball camp and we
it
fucked
was
with each
a
other
very
so
like
much.
passive aggressive female move, which to me is somewhat common.
I am
in-
from the Pacific Northwest.
That's
so
that's what
yeah.
I guess in the Pacific Northwest, the way people handle their problems is act like women. Like that's
That's fine.
like
I think women are great, Adam. So I don't know why.
I don't have a
I don't know why
problem
you're
with women. I'm
denigrating
just
them. So that would have like literally. I went to baseball camp and we fucked around with each other in those exact kinds of ways.
yeah.
But yeah, I think you're right. Like we don't know each other that well. I think I assumed we were more familiar that you would understand why that's funny. And I didn't even consider that like you're like it's like an unknown person. And
Yeah.
also, by the way, the other thing is it's funny because we were talking about a guy that I think does this kind of shit. But it is kind of funny because also we don't know each other that well. I've been drinking, and there's probably part of you that's like, is this guy secretly gay?
I had no idea what
Right,
to think.
right. No, that's funny.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
it's
funny.
a physical boundary to where like you put me in a position where I'm like,
I
yeah.
stand by it being funny, but I acknowledge your points.
yeah. I mean,
You make good points.
all right, we have like, I don't know, 5 minutes left or something. I did have a couple of times, and I know. Look,
By the way, so I want to say this though. Mike Hansen is a comic in our
Yeah.
local scene. He told me like actual things that I did that like hurt his feelings.
yeah,
I don't want to say hurt his feelings because that makes him sound like weaker than I'm not trying to do that.
yeah,
It was like genuinely beneficial to hear like, oh fuck yeah, I didn't realize you perceive that way. That's not how I feel. And now we're like, I think way cooler.
yeah.
I want that with everybody that I think is very funny and that I like. I would like them to also like me. Everybody else
I-
can fuck off, but
Press record. I was like,
fuck, you might want to just delete the whole episode.
No, I think it's been good. I mean, look, it's like behind the scenes stuff and
Sure.
sort of what it's like to be on the road. Shout out to Mike. He's done this podcast
Has he?
before. Yeah.
Nice.
I mean,
By the way, Mike and I had like friction. That's the thing too, is like sometimes people are carrying around shit that is like.
do you
this is
feel
like
like you have a lot of friction with a lot of people?
So I don't. But
Okay.
what I'm finding out, I don't have any animosity towards those people that we're talking about. Anybody that we've talked about.
Yeah.
I don't think. Jeremy Piven, I didn't like the drum thing. But other than that, like I like all those people. I admire their talent.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to be around talented people. And I want people that I like to like me. There is a thing like you're saying where you have to set a boundary. I have to set a boundary. I feel that way too. You're like, I understand the situation. Again, still think it was funny, but
yeah, I think the situation was funny.
Sure.
I do. But like, and I don't have any like ill will towards it. Like, I'm not
if I had done that to someone who I knew better, I think maybe we wouldn't even be like, or maybe everyone thinks I'm a fucking weird gay guy that jumps, like that fucks around like that. I think it's, I wasn't, we were never going to sleep in the same bed, obviously. Like that was never part of my plan.
Yeah.
If
and
I was sober
I didn't
enough,
know
I
if
probably
you were
would've
being drunk and being playful or you were dead ass serious. But like when I came back from brushing my teeth and you were still in there, I was like, I don't know what the fuck is about to happen, but I'm in the woods with a stranger.
Yeah,
and
that's, I guess that's the thing is like, I don't really view comics as strangers, which is like maybe, I mean, that's like truly is a privilege of being like a dude is I don't view like, I mean, you were like, we have all the same friends, basically. You know what I mean? Even though I don't know you very well. Well, some of these people might hate me, actually, it turns out. But we have, I like, but also like, I genuinely want to know if I've annoyed someone, hurt someone's feelings. It sucks. This is my thing, man. It sucks to find that stuff out when you're like, we could have had a great friendship for a long time, and it's not on. Listen,
I don't hate you for
No, you
like
hate me,
what happened. I don't like I just know that like there are people in this space that like
I wouldn't do that to everybody, by the way.
For sure.
I assumed like that's the other thing too is this like.
Well, I mean, I hope it's not a woman.
I would never do comedy with. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, obviously I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do anyone with it where I felt like it was like suggestive of anything.
Yeah, I didn't know what to think.
Right.
I mean, and the thing is like you had a few drinks in you, and I've had enough situations in this space where like somebody has been that way, and then all of a sudden, like I'm like, yeah, so we're not.
That's
I'm
funny.
not interested.
I was being exclusively playful, no seriousness.
Sure, but like as somebody that's like not drinking, and then there's another person that's had. I mean, dude, people have done some wild shit with a few drinks in them, and it's not them acting on. And I didn't know if it was like I just don't know you well.
Yeah, so I apologize for the discomfort,
and it's fine. Like I'm a grown man. Like I can handle it, but it sort of just it was
annoying, I believe, and maybe potentially like
I'm a big boy, you know, like I can handle my shit, and I say that about fighting where it was like I was on my back foot in that situation where it was like, hey, none of this could have
what I want out of this is everybody pour out the worst shit I've done to you. To me personally, please, would be my preference, because I would like again, like there are people who I'm sure I've been an asshole to. Sometimes, man, there's a thing too where like I've worked with older comics and I've perceived them to be assholes, and then I'm like, you work with them multiple times and you're like, oh no, they just get like kind of shitty right before the show.
Yeah.
And they're fine the rest of the time.
Sure.
Or they don't want to talk about fucking open mic drama. That's, you know, and I think that's the thing where like maybe I'm not the most my wife's best friend says that I am kind but not warm. And I think that is a very good description of me. And I think that sometimes people perceive that as an intent to be an asshole. It was
literally how I felt last night, where I was like, you know what? I just had a really cool conversation with this guy. We talked about a bunch of stuff. I respect like a lot of his mindset and the comics that he likes and all that. And, you know, I respect that you have a family and you prioritize that and like clearly have good values. But this thing that just happened doesn't make any fucking sense to me.
Yeah.
And I wasn't
that
I didn't wake up today like holding on to that. But I've also had some experiences like on the road where I'm just like, what the fuck is that? Like I was expecting that wasn't going to be the case this weekend. It's fine. And we're going to have fun still. Like it's like, and we do have to wrap because I'm close to an hour here, but
what's the deal with an hour? What's the
I just try and keep it
oh my God.
around that range. But
wait, should we do my should we do my podcast for like 30 minutes after? Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. What is that podcast for the people watching?
It's called Nobody Likes Casey McLain. Do you
and where
why?
can people where can people find your stuff?
YouTube.com/Casey McLain and YouTube Poor Sports doesn't have enough subscribers, so go subscribe to that, and then we'll get our own URL.
Yeah.
But it's
so nobody likes Casey McLain's on your
my
normal,
own YouTube,
yeah.
and then we have a special YouTube for the Poor Sports. It's with my buddy Alex Akita. We're going to start doing live shows. Now that you've rejected my sexual advances, you'll never be on it. But I was inviting you on it yesterday, but now, no, I'm fucking with you. I don't want to make light of that.
No, that is funny. And
it's funny because I wasn't doing that.
Sure.
If I was actually doing that, it would be very shitty. Yeah. And it does happen to people, usually not our demographic. But
I mean, it's happened to me, so it's like there are a lot of.
I want to hear about that off the podcast.
I mean, there's a lot of dudes in comedy that like dudes, and they act in ways that are fucking wildly inappropriate. So
it's so funny to imagine. That's not funny, whatever. But it's funny to imagine that this whole weekend I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna get the fuck at him this weekend."
Yeah, yeah. Look. If I'm gonna get fucked by a dude,
do you have any questions? Could you have any like quick questions that you had for the topics?
I mean, honestly, I think that was a good representation of what it's like to be on the road in comedy. So,
nobody's ever going to do the road.
I guess quick question was just about the Seattle sports. You're a lifelong Seattle sports fan. Kraken and Stars right now. It's game 6 tomorrow.
Yeah, I was watching it, but I kept getting lost in your eyes.
Yeah.
You're deflecting. Yeah. Okay, now it's getting weird again. Yeah, Kraken.
So I'm a lifelong Stars fan.
Nice.
You're Octopus Saget
I hate the name, dude.
fan.
I hate the name so much.
Yeah, it sucks.
It's the worst name in all of professional sports, in my opinion. The logo's amazing.
But you have all of their you wear their shit constantly.
Yeah, I got given a bunch of it. I've bought one hat, and I've been given a bunch of stuff as gifts.
Okay.
And I'm not one to not wear a free shirt.
I don't know when this episode will come out, but what's your prediction for the playoffs?
I don't know. I have not become enough of a Kraken fan to like really have a feel for how good they are. I know they weren't supposed to beat the Avalanche.
Mm-hmm.
I almost called them the Rapids. That's the MLS team, I believe. They weren't supposed to be good enough to beat them, and they did. But that's like classic Seattle to have like the improbable victory and then never carry it through to the championship. So my guess is that
they lose this series.
Probably, who knows?
Okay. And then second
I gotta
question,
say something to make you happy.
As a lifelong Seattle sports fan, favorite moment in Seattle sports?
Yeah, so a pretty easy answer for people is when the Seahawks won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, let's knock that one out just because it's like kind of cliche.
Yeah, the one is, and this one's a cliche, but maybe you aren't aware of it, or I'm sure you're aware of it, but you didn't live here at the time. Is 1995.
Yeah, the
first playoff appearance for the Mariners. It's Game 5. John Wetland on the mound. Edgar Martinez batting, and he hits the double. Which
Were
is
you
like,
there?
I wasn't there, but it was. So my dad is like beat up old man. He's gotten 2 severe motorcycle accidents when he was a kid. Has was a contractor too, but he's got like not a ton of mobility in his legs, right? And he and I are both, I've never seen him jump before. I've never seen his feet leave the ground. We're like jumping up and down in our living room. And then it's like, a couple of years later, my parents are divorced and life is much worse. But that was like such a fucking beautiful moment in my childhood to share with my family. We're all watching it. That doesn't happen in my house even now. We don't all watch a sporting event. Even like the Super Bowl that they won, the Seahawks won, I watched it with like a bunch of buddies. But like my whole family in one place, all fucking just overjoyed was cool. And that's obviously that's incredibly
cinematic. You were what, like
sports.
10 at the time?
I would have been 9. I was 95.
Yeah, so old enough to like really remember it too.
Yeah, I mean, I like genuinely remember the whole experience.
I was at the 98 Vikings Atlanta Falcons game where Gary Anderson missed the only field goal he missed the entire year.
Is that Randy Moss's rookie year?
I think so. I think he wasn't wearing 18. So I think it may have been his second year. But
I thought he came up with 84. Or was that?
He started with 18.
Oh, gotcha.
Like there were a bunch of rookie cards with that. And then because in NFL Blitz, I think he was 18.
Yeah, the Jake Reed, Chris Carter.
That was the
Randall
next
Cunningham.
Year. Next year.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the first year, I think it was Cunningham.
And then it was Brad Johnson the second year, wasn't it?
No, it was Brad Johnson, then Cunningham.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Because it was like revived Cunningham's, like Randy Moss.
And then Dante, Sausage Fingers, Culpepper.
Yeah, dude. That I remember that Vikings team. I mean, that iteration of Randy Moss might have been the most entertaining football player
But
I've ever seen in my
I was
life.
at that game.
That's
it was the
fucking awesome.
first football game I ever
also
went
sucks.
to. It literally, people were losing their mind, and they asked Dennis Green after the game if he felt like it was Gary's fault, and he's like, "Of course it's his fault. Like it's 100%." It was so fucking
Dennis Green
funny.
is the most honest post-game interview coach,
dude.
Like too
out
much.
of control.
Too much. He's got that famous Cardinals one. They are who we thought they
yeah.
were. I had their defense that game
In fantasy.
It was, I think, against maybe Chicago. I had whatever defense they were playing against in fantasy football, and I was like, yeah, the defense has to score like 3 touchdowns, and then they scored 3 touchdowns, and I was like, I won my game by like 2 points.
Fuck yeah.
It was 2 very improbable victories. Nice. By the way, a podcast is over when someone starts talking about their fantasy football team.
Well, with that, I think that's what we got. Thank you for coming on, dude. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for watching us on YouTube. If you are listening to us, just make sure to rate and review wherever you listen. Leave a comment on YouTube if you can. Notifications, bell, subscribe. Just do all that stuff. It helps us out. And then also we're on Patreon, patreon.com/FNFpod. Also on Instagram @FNFpod. Thank you, Casey, for coming on.
Sorry for everything I did.
We're good.
I'm a deviant. I didn't know.
We're going to leave you guys with Jaga.
I just make the waves, I don't write them. I can hear the lyrics in my spirit as I write them. Why you wanna walk and talk just like them? I can't get caught up in all the hype and the excitement. I just make the waves, I don't write them. I can hear the lyrics in my spirit as I write them. Why you wanna walk and talk just like them? I can't get caught up in all the hype and the excitement. My wave pool, my wave pool. Welcome to 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 my wave pool.